Have you ever wanted to jump into someone else's arms? Cause if so, then you wanted to glomp. Glomping as an act has been around for nearly 2 decades now, but it is mostly constrained in the anime and manga world, with only the real human world widely adopting glomping during the early 2000s, when comic and anime cons started to boom. In most manga, sound effects aren't being translated anymore, where in general they keep the original Japanese sound effects in the comics. But in most old mangas, like how we are used to in comic books, they fully write out the sound effect we are meant to hear, like boing, whoosh, bam. During 1993, in a manga called Ranma 1/2, the debut of the glomp sound effect was born for a blunt hit on a character. This would later be adopted by its own manga and Urusei Yatsura, who were both being licensed by Viz in the 1990s, where this glomp sound effect would be frequently used for when a hug tackle was being performed. Fast forward a few years and we enter a new age of the anime fandom, who grew from being a bunch of old dudes with a weird hobby to a wider audience thanks to the advent of Web 2.0. The fandom grew a significant amount thanks to the easy distribution of legal media and the far more painless non-legal distributions, lowering the entrance requirements from being a well-off adult to just anyone with an internet connection. The lowering hurdle of entry also meant the lowering of the age of the fandom, because now a bunch of younger fans started to dive into the world of anime with the power of the internet. This, however, was still an area where nerd culture wasn't just for anyone. Sure, anyone could get access to most of their favorite shows from all across the world, but most people still thought games and animated shows were for children. And most fans of games and/or anime weren't the most social butterflies. They were people who most likely didn't have lots of friends at school or other social gatherings who shared their still considered weird hobby of foreign animation. So that's when anime and comic cons started to gain a wider audience, a place for these people to socialize with like-minded people. Sadly, some of these people learned their social cues from the media they consumed and started to act like those characters, which included glomping. The glomp could go from just a hug to a running hug, a hug where one person clings onto the other person, and of course a full-on sprint and dive. A game involving glomping was also created back in 2007 by a guy going by the online handle of Gladimus, who claimed to have started a glomp spin a bottle game that was eventually named into a glomp circle, where people spun a bottle and had to glomp that person. Glomping started to spread throughout the first decade of the 21st century, but a problem arose. See, there was no problem when the person you were glomping wanted it, you announced yourself, you were friends and agreed upon it, or were a participant in a glomp circle. People started to glomp strangers as well, because hey, I like the character you're cosplaying, or that character needs a hug that you're cosplaying. This of course caused quite a bit of a rift in the community, where glomping became a hot topic. Pro-glompers didn't see the harm since they were just hugging, and the anti-glompers were just upset they were being tackled by almost fully grown humans, which hurt if you're not prepared, or worse, they were destroying the cosplays they were working so hard on. And on top of that, glomp circles started to inhabit larger spaces, making it very hard to get across the convention floors. To rectify and make it more fun, people started to mindstorm ideas to keep glomping strangers a thing, by having badges be marked for glomp receivers or people wearing pins when they don't want to be glomped at all. But this felt more like shifting the blame on the people not wanting to be glomped instead of fixing the people by only glomping people they know. It also wasn't just attendees that were at these cons. Guests, who were most of the time famous people, also participated in these events and would also get glomped. The cons themselves were also getting reports of people getting annoyed by glompers. This, along with the ever-increasing sexual harassment many con-goers faced during the early 10s, caused a movement to start to where costumes does not equal consent, and boundaries of people's spaces was more accepted. And you think this will be the end, a trend that died in the early 10s, but of course some diehards still continued. And most of the time, they kept it within their own circles, until this motherfucker popped up the scene. And the Whole Wheat Pete, a TikToker, YouTuber and cosplayer who basically brought back glomping in his popular videos. His most popular ones where he dresses up as Zenitsu from Demon Slayer and tries to find Nezuko cosplayers and purposefully misses glomps. And in all honesty, the guy sells it. I don't know if he's like a stuntman background or he just doesn't care for the pain, but he goes full force, and because he intentionally misses the target, no one but he himself gets really hurt. However, barely anyone's crazy enough to do the things he did, so this revival of glomping stuck mostly with him. Okay, it hurts looking back at these people, but also keep in mind that most of the people that I'm talking about are like children or teens. And at the end of the day, these kids were just really having fun in their own way at a place they felt the most comfortable. And that is the most important thing about all of this. Because due to the actions from the past, we can learn for the future. But to further drive home this important lesson, here is Sonic the Hedgehog.
There's nothing more cool than being hugged by someone you like. But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's no good.